Welcome everyone to Marvel Hub. This is DK Dynamite, and today we're going to be talking about the last 8 minutes of Avengers Endgame, which was really teased quite a bit by Robert Downey Jr. as he officially said the last 8 minutes of that movie are maybe the best 8 minutes of the entire history of the whole run of them, in a way because everyone's involved, so I was delighted. So the fact that he was delighted could either be throwing us off in the sense that he was delighted that he had a fitting end to his character, maybe he passes away and it's a big funeral where all the Avengers are there supporting him, hugging Peter maybe, as all the dusted characters are returning towards the end of the film. Maybe it's something like that and that's why he's delighted, but he's not going to give away that it's a sad ending in any way.
The last 8 minutes of that movie are maybe the best 8 minutes in the entire history of the whole run of them, in a way, you know, because everyone's involved. So I was delighted. He's recognizing that he actually should have his eyes on the long game here, and so I guess there's a different set of principles that he's operating by than he has before, and I think a lot of that has been the burgeoning effect of all of these other Avengers, and seeing how much they've put on the line. Anthony and Joe are about the only two folks that I could imagine, forget just still having the respect of the cast and crew when we were done, but not being either incarcerated or embalmed or in some other way permanently damaged, because the physical and mental stripping of one's chi that it takes. You know, these are years and years and years and years. They've essentially been on a job for 6-7 years now, and I love them, and they love the Avengers. It was all there in this universe to begin with, and I think that that's why the Marvel comics have always been so numinous to kids and grown-ups and people. There's this love for it because it speaks to the world, but it also speaks to the democratic American projected dream, which is far more complicated than that. But there's an ideal there that's always been trying to express itself, and strangely, in some ways, the best of it has been expressed in these little 2-hour segments of entertainment.
Or it's delighted in the sense that maybe it's his wedding with Pepper, and every single character in the MCU who knows Tony and Pepper actually attends the wedding itself, and that's why he was delighted. So it could really go one of two ways, but once again, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't take Robert's words as some type of, inspirational way to say, hey, you know what, the ending is definitely, some happy ending, it's a fitting end to his arc, he's not gonna die. Don't take his words in that way. Once again, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Kind of stay open-minded, and also remember that a lot of the actors, directors, producers, behind the scenes workers, everybody has to say certain things to avoid spoilers, and maybe the things that they're saying sometimes are definitely accurate and definitely reflect whatever it is they're talking about in an honest way, but there's always pieces of that puzzle that we're always going to be missing. They're not going to be 100% straightforward with a certain scene of the movie or something that happened behind the scenes. They can't do that just to avoid spoilers, so keep that in mind. Once again, if you ask me what I think about the last 8 minutes of the film, I think Avengers Endgame is going to have a lot of mixed emotions within it. I think the ending itself will give off a lot of mixed emotions, and I think a lot of people will feel very differently about it, depending if you're a hardcore fan or not. And I think if somebody really important does die in the movie, it will happen in a very meaningful way that definitely fits the narrative of the MCU, and definitely is something that you know for a fact the Russo brothers and the other writers of the movie are known to write like. So something similar to Civil War or Infinity War, where you'd expect something to happen in that sense of the narrative. So aside from the last 8 minutes of Avengers Endgame, which we know little to nothing about, I also wanted to go over the fact that they just confirmed that Spider-Man Far From Home is actually the ending of Phase 3. So this brings together an interesting point that I was thinking about actually just the other day in regards to Phase 2, and the fact that Kevin Feige had originally said, I think after the very first Avengers released, he had originally said that every phase going forward would end with an Avengers film, and that was before they knew they were doing the Infinity Saga, which would originally end at the end of Phase 3. So with that statement, it does make sense, right? You have all these build-up films throughout a phase, and then you have the very end of that phase be an Avengers movie to kind of wrap up that entire phase overall. And while that makes a lot of sense, we ended up finding out that Ant-Man is actually the ending of Phase 2 because it released not too long after Avengers Age of Ultron, and it does seem like there's a trend with if a film releases so close to an Avengers movie, it's probably in the same phase, and we saw that once again with Ant-Man releasing shortly after Avengers Age of Ultron. It was still part of Phase 2, and I believe Phase 3 opened up with Civil War. I can't remember which one it was, but it was quite a while before Phase 3 then opened up, probably about 8 months if I remember correctly. But now that we're looking at the ending of Phase 3, we were all under the interpretation that Avengers Endgame is the end of Phase 3. It makes perfect sense. It's closing off the Infinity Saga. You know, it really truly is the ending of this 22 film arc. Not that any of these characters are never going to be returning, but just the fact that the Infinity Saga storyline with Thanos, the Infinity Stones, the OG6, all of that is supposed to be coming to an end in Avengers Endgame, but you'd assume while doing all that, it's also ending off Phase 3. While it turns out it's actually not, because Kevin Feige himself also confirmed that Spider-Man Far From Home is going to be closing off Phase 3. Now, that's really interesting to say, and it does make sense in a way because Spider-Man Far From Home releases, again, not too long after Endgame comes out. So not only does that make sense, but Charles Murphy over on Twitter was also teasing that Spider-Man Far From Home is the ending of Phase 3 for a reason, but he's not going to go into it, and I'm pretty sure we know what he means by that, and it's the fact that Stark is probably going to pass away in Avengers Endgame. Even if he retires and goes away for some reason, it still has a big impact on Peter, because Peter's going from, hey, Tony's my mentor, he's recruiting me to go to Germany, help him fight Captain America, to I'm fighting the Vulture, trying to convince Tony that the Vulture is this crazy threat, and then finally he believes him, and they're friends now, and then they have this really close relationship, and then all of a sudden aliens come, Spider-Man's helping Tony, and then all of a sudden they're on a whole different planet fighting some intergalactic titan who's trying to destroy the universe, or half of it at least. So the arc with Tony and Peter is pretty hectic. There's a lot that's happened since Tony, first recruited Peter in Civil War, so there's a lot that's gone on with the relationship. So I think obviously whatever happens to Tony at the end of Endgame will definitely have a lasting impact on Peter going forward. So you could definitely assume you'll see some elements of one of the classic Spider-Man comics where Peter just doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore. And obviously that won't be, the main arc throughout Far From Home, but I definitely think that you're going to feel the presence, or going to feel the vibe of that storyline as he's spending more time with MJ, he's on vacation, he's trying to live a normal life and take time away from being Spider-Man, and then all of a sudden Nick Fury brings him right back in to fight the Elementals, apparently team up with Mysterio, get some new suits. So a lot's going to be happening throughout Far From Home, and even the first trailer we got for the movie could easily be throwing us off. We have no idea what's actually going to happen in the film. There are a lot of leaked plots going out there, which I will definitely link to you guys down below in the description, and have some more that I want to be reading in the next couple of days as well. But in terms of ending off Phase 3, I could have sworn they originally confirmed Spider-Man Far From Home would be opening up Phase 4, but in all honesty, it does make sense for this film to be closing off Phase 3. It really does make sense. But let me know what you think of that down below in the comments section. I believe it's ending off Phase 3 for a reason, obviously depending on what happens at the end of Avengers Endgame, but I'm really curious if they come out and say, yeah, Endgame is the end of the Infinity Saga, this 22 film arc, but Spider-Man Far From Home is technically still in Phase 3, even though it's not really pushing the Infinity Saga storyline further. But that's also a pretty confusing statement in and of itself, because movies like Black Panther and even Spider-Man Homecoming, they don't really push the Infinity Saga storyline any further. The purposes of those movies is really to just convey and reflect the powerful characters that are Black Panther and Spider-Man. So it's a really confusing way to look at it. You can look at it in both ways. Maybe it's the end of both the Infinity Saga and Phase 3, or maybe it's just the end of Phase 3 since the Infinity Saga is going to be over in Endgame. But this has been DK Dynamite. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn notifications on to stay up to date with the latest and greatest Marvel news and information. I'll keep you guys up to date as soon as new TV spots or information is released over online. And peace out, everyone.